Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Ashish. I am truly honored and privileged because I believe I had a role to play in getting my publishing associate Manish together with Ashish and Joy, and very, very different circumstances. And I'm delighted, absolutely. It's truly amazing, the collection of essays that I included in the book. I have a small essay in this, and I sort of reiterate all that has been said before, the sheer meticulousness with which Ashish, Joy, Manish worked, every sentence, every word was, and the number of clarifications. Yeah, many of us felt a little, irked, irritated, but at the end of it, it's all come out so brilliantly. And let me tell you, Ashish, you can give it away free, but all of you here not only must buy a copy, I'm doing a little bit of hard sell, and please convince others that they should buy lots and lots and lots of copies of this book. Then they can download it and give it to the whole world. Okay, the little bit that I had to say was the media. The media in India and the media across the world is going through a tremendous churn. I mean, just when you look at India, who could have imagined even, I mean, the internet is just over a quarter of a century old. As we talk, a little under half of this planet still hasn't used the internet even once. In India, that proportion is perhaps somewhere around 2/3, roughly 2/3 of the population still hasn't used the internet even once. But when you look at some other statistics, it's absolutely mind-boggling. In just about every urban area in this country, there are more SIMs, subscriber identity modules, that little chip inside your mobile phone. There are more SIMs than human beings. I mean, you have a country of 1.3 billion people, you have 1 billion SIMs. You have about 700 million handsets.
With other numbers.
Huh?
With other numbers.
Okay. As Jalab has clarified. With the I still haven't got mine linked yet. But why am I saying this? Because the internet, the classic scalpel, you know, in the hands of a skilled surgeon, it can remove a diseased part of your body, make you a healthier human being. That same sharp knife can be used to maim, to kill. And that's exactly what's happening. I mean, across the world and also in India, we see the proliferation of fake news. The biggest business on the internet is pornography. And I mean, the kind of changes that the internet has brought in human society and in Indian society is something I think very few of us could have imagined. Certainly not 25 years ago, when the internet just started, but even the last 10 or 15 years. When we look at what has happened in the last 3-4 years, I mean, there have been some truly amazing changes. One of the things that we see is that the Great Recession of 2008, the fact that almost everybody wants everything they read, everything they hear, everything they watch on WhatsApp early in the morning, free. Okay? The notion of copyright, the notion of intellectual property rights, the fact that there is a section of India today which is so overloaded with information that not only can they find it difficult to discern what is fake from what is real, but they find it difficult to, you know, come to the essence, to find what is relevant, what is important. So in this kind of a scenario, the looking ahead at what the media holds for all of us. I've tried to talk about alternative models of financing. I mean, say something very unusual has happened. Today, a group of privately owned media organizations are more loyal than the king. They're doing it better than Doordarshan and All India Radio could ever hope to do. No, why has this happened? How has this happened? That here you have, you know, the revenue models have changed across the world. The dependence on advertisers continues, but what kind of advertisers? These media organizations have become more dependent on the government and on political parties for their income, for their revenue than ever before. And therefore, what you see, what you hear, what you watch is truly amazing. That here you have, say a group of, a clutch of television channels, media organizations, whose job is to take on the opposition. At a time when Ramesh's party, by his own admission, is going through an existential crisis, when the Indian National Congress, for the first time in its history, its vote share has dipped below 20%, its number of seats in the Lok Sabha is below 10%. So, in this scenario, we have reasons to be hopeful. Of course, Gujarat has made us hopeful, but this book is going way beyond Gujarat. It's going to go way beyond 2018 and 2019. Because the recurrent theme is that, yes, of course, as everybody said, it's very easy to be cynical, it's very easy to be pessimistic, it's very easy to believe that nothing will change, nothing can change. But the fact that so many of these brilliant writers and contributors and activists, academics and scholars have laid out for you this vision of what comes ahead for your children, for your grandchildren. We are living in an India for the first time half your population is below the age of 25 or 26. This is the first time in the history of this country that out of 1.3 billion people, you have half. Within, I don't know how many, 5 years, some say 10 years, some people say 7 years, this will become the most populous country in the world. So this book has not just a long shelf life. I think we need to see how we can ensure that more and more of books and the contributors are able to reach out to young people. Sometimes the language used in this book may be difficult for many people, young people to understand. The authors who've written surely would be able to communicate that. I thank Manish, Ashish, Joy, all of you. Thank you very much for being part of this.
Now I request Dinesh to come up. And maybe a little brief.
How brief?
Yeah, I know, I just saw that.
How brief?
Eh?
How brief he wants?
2 minutes. How brief? 2 minutes? 1 minute?
There are 3 or 4 people to speak, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. And after all, what we wanted to say we have already written, and it's now your job that you read us and then make a conversation with us. But I was privileged to be part of this journey that Ashish and Joy had chosen to undertake, because I've always dreamt of a possibility of developing a common ground between environmentalists and the people who started with the socialist vision. My friend is sitting here and wrote about Delhi Science Forum once in EPW and contrasting it. Aditya wrote about it. That what Delhi Science Forum is, what KSSP. They were called the ecological Marxists, and we were called the, I don't know, technocratic Marxism. If I remember. So, but I have been fortunate that I have had always interactions and engagements with my friends across the boundaries, so to say, if there were boundaries between environmentalists and the socialists. And I think that together there is a possibility of dreaming of a future. At the time when people talked of there is no alternative, we always believed there are alternatives. And we thought socialism is the alternative. But when Soviet socialism collapsed, people thought of working out what kind of alternatives required to be put in place. But even prior to that, many of us had doubts, because some of us joined the journey with full open minds, saying that the Soviet Union wasn't working out. So there was already a contrasting vision from China and Cuba and so on, etc. with China. So when we have to write about India, how do we write about India's new future for socialism? So I chose to write on the subject that was given, that is technological future.
Because you've been working on it, so.
Okay. So, and I linked it to the fact that we are looking for a socialist democracy.
Yeah.
Okay? And how would that be possible? And I wanted to also have my feet on the ground. See, people can dream, but I think India built its future through the freedom movement that we all are still cherishing, I think, and I hope we continue to cherish that, because the current regime doesn't cherish all that, because they didn't ever contribute to that particular dream. So we, I think, have that challenge with regard to even building this form of democracy with the help of technology, which might be dreaded by very many people who think that democratic future is not safe if you have a lot of technology. But I believe that the technology and democracy can be brought together, number one. And I think that's how do we bring it together? And I think there's an important lesson from the Indian journey. If you look at the way the Nehruvianism accommodated Gandhi, if you look at KVIC and so on, I've brought it out, where the CSIR actually tackled the question of different trends within technology which were argued during the National Planning Committee and others. And that's a very exciting journey. It closed only around 70s, and it was reopened in the 80s again as far as is concerned. But the notes were too short. Technology policy statement, GARA must have been part of that particular statement. And it opened up new vistas as well. The Technology Policy Implementation Committee actually dreamt of tweaking the Nehruvian path at that time. Unfortunately, there is no alternative. Wallace closed the door very soon on that particular alternative, which was beginning to emerge at that time. And I think we need to revisit that discourse which was taking place in the 80s. And I have revisited that particular discourse also in this particular piece, and I think it's very important that when we are looking at the future, we have our feet on the ground, we look at the past again, we rebuild it, because we are all the time constructing future from the present as far as it's concerned. So, and I do believe that the environmentalists and the people of social justice have definitely a common ground among themselves, far more than ever before as far as is concerned. Today there is no red without green, and there is no green without red. And if that is the case, then I think this particular book has served its purpose, and I'm sure it would be explored again in different ways. Maybe we can revisit after 5 years. You don't have to wait till 10 years, because some of us may not be alive after 10 years. So we can revisit it, and with that hope that we will revisit together and continue to explore a common ground. That's how I will close my remarks here at that.
Right, Dinesh, I would request Dunu to come up. Come to Dunu.
Well, extending from what Rakesh had to say, if you are living in a dystopia of red and green nightmares, then perhaps an expression of utopia would be what? Brown? I don't know what the color comes out.
Rainbow.
Rainbow, okay. So, if we are living also in a dystopia of bad authors, then we look forward to a utopia of good authors. This is another question that we may need to ask. This volume, I think Ashish and Joy deserve full credit for having brought together people who would write and write across the spectrum of things, and people who would outside go and fight with each other. So I think that's a very healthy procedure, that at least we are all out there in paper, in writing, and the future looks very healthy, because we can also all now fight with each other on the basis of what is written rather than what is not written. The second part of it is, of course, within this stream of authors, I've been going through not only my piece, because I've forgotten what I wrote 2 years back, but I've been going through some of the other pieces. And actually there's a huge amount to refresh, to think about, to reflect on, and hopefully to come out with something more cogent. than what is been previously there. And my final, it's a request to the two of you, that actually if there's this huge young population which has not accessed the internet and is likely to start making itself felt in the next few years, perhaps this book needs to be taken out in regional languages.
Yeah.
Because they're not all going to read English.
Yeah.
And to reach out to them, to see what these ideas mean for them, would perhaps be extremely useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Dunu. In fact, there is already a suggestion that the book to be brought out in Hindi. There is some process being put together.
What kind of Hindi is the question?
Yeah, that is. And day before we had a discussion of the book in Pune, so there is also an offer to, at least the process began to bring it out in Marathi. So it's an open thing that people can bring it out in a regional local language. Be good. Next, I would invite Aditya.
Thank you, everybody. I'll be very brief. Basically, what I want to react to or respond to is this thing about dream versus something called reality. We're actually all tired of being realists, pragmatists, limits, possibilities, and so on. I'm always reminded of Che Guevara saying, be realistic, demand the impossible.
Yeah.
Perhaps my way of being realistic is, and I take the advantage of Mr. Jairam Ramesh's presence here, 2019 is around the corner.
Yeah.
And whatever we are saying here, 2019 will be an important turning point for us before we step into that grand future that we are trying to talk about. And it's time that those who are today concerned about what is going on in India and the rest of the world think deep and hard about possibilities beyond what economists have taught us to look at. GDP is a concept not more than 75 years old, and economics as a discipline also not that much old. The world existed before the discipline of economics existed, before economists existed, before they came to tell us how things work. Markets worked, people's work. Rajni Bakshi's piece gives you a long history of markets. So there are actually counter histories, there are other ways of looking at the world which have been there. Economics has somehow colonized our imagination in such a way that I remember during the UPA regime, the continuous tussle between the Environment Ministry and the imperatives of neoliberal economic development. And I think my own investment in this book is that it tries to unshackle our minds into all these different fields or different sectors where different kind of thinking is already there. Possibilities are already indicated. The Congress Party has to think about it, others have to think about it. 2019 cannot be allowed to go to these people again. Without that, we will be discussing a vacuous future. Thank you.
Thanks, Aditya. I hope Jairam Ramesh will pick up that. We have Rajeswari, I think, the last author who is present.
Rajeswari was missing at that time.
No, she's here now. Yes. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I'm here to just a couple of words about why I wrote that chapter. Partly because I was still recently employed in CSIR, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, a small lab called National Institute of Science, Technology and Development Studies, where Dinesh was my colleague for 22 years. We've both, Dinesh, me, several others, have lived through this organized, council-based scientific research and have been, frustrated, sad about a lot of things that are happening. A lot of, questions that are never answered. So silence becomes the best answer for this formal organized scientific research system. So when this opportunity to write a chapter about imagined futures on knowledge came up, and also this opportunity over time to work with a lot of people in the field, whether it was Greenpeace or civil society organizations, the opportunity to work with several people in the field also enriched my experience with alternatives, and also an increasing respect for the ways in which knowledge was cherished and nurtured in the field, which is something that I realized was not happening in the formal organized scientific research systems. Several friends here will also, hopefully, if you read the chapter, recognize their faces in the chapter about how I've learned from them and how some of these imagined visions, whether it's Auntie Krug in South Africa or Kanika Satyanand here, Swati Bogle, several people from whom Usha Namnathan, from whom I've learned about possible futures, about things that they're doing differently. They've all been entered in this chapter as small snippets or notes or comments. So this chapter owes a lot to contributions that I've received from a wide-ranging, fellowship, association, and a lot of other people. Thank you for the opportunity and for allowing me to write this. Thank you.
So before we invite Jairamji to address, we have a bit of time for a bit of an interaction. So if there's any questions, your own